Welcome back to GOT. We just got through finished watching the Samsung Unpacked event, and it was all about the S26 series. And this year, if I had to describe it in one word, it'd be infrastructure, because you know what? They use that word 14 times in this presentation. And what does infrastructure really mean? Well, for me, it seemed like it was a fancy word to say we didn't focus on any hardware, so let's redirect on the software and infrastructure. They want you to think it's like electricity. It's filling out the entire device and running things, which basically is AI. So let's go ahead and talk about that and cover that in detail. Let's go. So the big question is, did they really just bypass any hardware and they just do software and they're fluffing it up as infrastructure and something fancy? And on top of that, charging us an extra $100 per phone. Now, I know I'm sounding skeptical right from the front. I do have a lot of Samsung devices. I do buy Samsung. I got the tablet here as well, and I got the Plus somewhere around here. So I do get the devices. So don't get me wrong. I'm just looking at reality. Now, let's not bury the lead. Let's talk about the S25 Ultra, because if you watch the event, that's basically all they ever talked about. And in the past few years, really is all they ever talk about, because it's their flagship premium phone. So the lead story and the main event, I believe, of the whole thing was the privacy screen. Now, if you ever used a privacy screen before, basically you put it on there, and when you're looking straight on, you can see everything nice and clear, but someone off to the side, all they see is black screen or very dim. Even if somebody's above you looking at an angle, they can't see it, which is a great thing if you're in an airplane or sitting on a bus or close to somebody in public and you don't want them viewing what you're viewing. That's a great way of doing it. Now, I've never really liked the privacy screens for my own purposes, but let's go ahead and talk about this, and then maybe we'll discover why I don't really care for using them, but maybe this is a better solution. So Samsung's going to be the first at this, so they are an innovator once again, which is a great thing for Samsung. And what they're going to do with this thing is, supposedly, of course, these phones have all kinds of lights and pixels, and they all light up. And what they have is they have pixels side by side, and they have some that are restricting the light and basically just creating a straight beam and not allowing it to branch off to the sides, which would give you the visibility to the side, which if you think about it, TVs back in the day, that was a whole big new thing when they came out with the flat screens and the OLEDs. They advertised the wider view that you could have, so you can really view it in a larger room. People off the side could see the screen, because if you're older like I am, you remember when you got to the side, you kind of lose view of the screen. Well, we're kind of going in reverse now. They want people from the outside not to see it. So what they're doing is they are removing pixels by darkening them. So like every other pixel. So if you go into privacy mode, you're actually getting half the LEDs or half of the pixels that you would normally get on the screen. So what does that mean for me or you? Well, to me, that means a little bit dimmer view. It has to be so that the folks from the side can't see it. So we're getting a little dimmer view, even though we're getting a clear image looking straight at it. We're looking at half pixels. So in the S25 Ultra perspective, you pay $1,300 to look at half the pixels if you use privacy. Now, there might be a good time for it and a bad time for it. So most of the time you may just leave it turned off, which is fine. And then you may only program it for certain apps, like your banking app or maybe some private chat messaging apps, which, if that's the use case, that's great. But for someone like me, whenever I put one of those privacy screens on my phone or device or even my tablets, I notice how dim the view got. I mean, looking straight on when I'd watch a movie or something, I noticed it's not as clear as I thought it used to be. It's not as brilliant because it dulls it quite a bit so that extra light doesn't bleed out to the people alongside of you. So for that reason, I don't really like the privacy screens on my devices. Now, in essence, that's the same way their privacy mode is going to work, because it's cutting the pixels and it's reducing the view. Now, the cool part of that is with a screen protector, it's on and it's on forever. With this, you could turn it off and on. So that is a great idea, Samsung. Now, one fallacy I did see it in, I was watching somebody's view. I think it was, who was it? Who's the boss guy? He was showing the S25 Ultra next to the S26 Ultra. And with it turned off, the S25 was definitely a lot brighter, even with them at full brightness. You got a lot brighter screen, a lot clearer screen on the S25 Ultra. So apparently some of those pixels won't light up as bright as they do in this older phone. So it sounds like there is some kind of compromise for that privacy. And I don't really know how many people have been asking for that. It's not something I really ever used. And that feature is only on the S26 Ultra. It's not going to go to the other 26 series phones. So to be honest with you, my take on that privacy screen is just AI tax, a way to charge more money. But of course, we're not getting it on the other phones. So why are they charging more money for those? We'll get more into that in just a moment. Now, there's more to the S26 Ultra than the privacy screen. They are actually upping the charging on this thing to 60 watts. So that's fantastic. Apparently, you can get to 75% in 30 minutes. So that's pretty good, but still not up there with these other big boys like the Honor Magic or even the Vivo phones. These things charge much faster and have much larger batteries, because staying with the battery, they're on the 5th or 6th version. I think it may even be the 7th version of a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. So there's no upgrade in battery, just in charging. So if that's the case, why did they wait so long to give us a faster charger? So it's going to 60 watts from 45 and 25 watts wireless from 15. So that's a little bump, but it's nowhere near. You get 40 in the Vivo and you get 80 wireless in the Honor Magic 8 Pro. So even with those little bit of charging changes, charging bump, still not up there with the competition. And then let's go ahead and slide on up here to the cameras. The cameras, we still have the same inlet cameras, same rule. The only difference is they're finally going to match it up to their other devices and give it that island like we see here on the Z Fold 7, giving that island. Now, the island on the Z Fold 7 is quite deep, as you can see here, and the cameras are quite shallow on the S25 Ultra, so I don't think it's going to be quite as much of a bump as we got here, because another thing about the S26 Ultra is it's going to get thinner. And I don't have the exact dimensions in front of me, but I know it's like 4 millimeters thinner. So that's quite a jump. So that could be why they decided to put the island around these, so that they don't change the size of these. They just put an island around it to compensate for that depth, so you don't lose any of the quality in the cameras. Because wouldn't that be a shame? So on the cameras right now, they still have the 200 megapixel main shooter. Although they've given it a little bit of a bump in aperture, they made it a little bit wider. So it's an f1.4 instead of a f1.7. So that's really low light. So it should do a lot better in low light, although they still have Samsung's softening software. So I don't know how much better that'll be. And from my experience, Samsung so far is still the noisiest in low light. So hopefully that, along with the AI that they're adding to this, will hopefully really improve the photography in this phone. But we still have the 5 times 50 megapixel zoom lens, okay, where the other ones like these two have a 200 megapixel zoom lens, so you cannot compete with those. And then it has that 12 megapixel 10 times optical lens, which really to me is kind of useless, because you've got the 50 megapixel lens on these other phones, like especially the Pixel. It has a 50 megapixel 5 times zoom, but it's much better, much more superior. And it's because of the software. So maybe they're taking something from the Pixel playbook and they're going to do better with AI. But as far as these cameras, there's not much changing. You still have the same set of cameras, just a little bit wider aperture on the 200 megapixel. Now they're saying that the curvature on it is a little more softer than the S25 Ultra, but I'm going to show you something here in just a few minutes that'll prove it's really not much of a change at all. So let's take a moment and talk about this AI. It's called agentic AI, and it's supposed to be combined with Bixby to become the smartest AI out there. They're trying to, I guess, compete against even Gemini themselves and ChatGPT. So it's supposed to be a smarter AI, where it will actually, one example is they say you can have 7 tabs open in the Samsung browser, and that AI can look at all the tabs, combine all the information, and give you a summary or a synopsis, or look for information that you want, all within the browser without having to go anywhere else or use any other app. Well, that's pretty nifty. But of course, that's one way of Samsung getting you to use their browser. Now, I'm not one that ever really got used to the Samsung browser. I know there's a lot of folks out there. So if you're used to it, you're going to love that feature. Now, all these things they talked about sounded so great, but then you got to read in the fine lines and check out the detail and listen to the words that they're saying. that AI can really be useful. And for the first 12 months, you're going to get to use the Pro version for free. So did you catch that? What does that mean? You get to use it for free for the first 12 months. Well, then it goes into a subscription model at $20 a month. Very similar to that of Gemini. How many of you out there are paying for Gemini now? For me, I've been fortunate enough. I've been buying a new Pixel every year that I get it for a year with my Pixel, and I've just been using that account on all my phones. But you know what? If you're paying for Gemini, oh boy, they're going to give you the free service of this agentic AI and then get you hooked on it and then start charging you for it. So this is a very interesting way of doing business that Samsung has ventured in on. Not focusing a whole lot on hardware, but more on software and subscription models to get more money out of me and you. So now the S26 Ultra is going to get an upgrade of the processor. It's going to get the Snapdragon 8 Gen 5 Elite. Okay, it's a mouthful. So it's upgrading from last year's 8 Elite chip, and it's supposed to be about 20% faster. And that chip is also going to go into the other phones, all the 26 series. And of course, these are all Samsung's Snapdragon chip. So they are given a little bit of a boost to try and make them the fastest device out there. Now, I can tell you from personal testing, I don't find that to be the case, but at least it's a great thought. Now, along with that chip, a better cooling system in there. So that the idea is that you can sustain gaming a lot longer with a cooler system and that faster chip. Now, I have my own thoughts about that Snapdragon 8 Gen 5 chip, and I'll tell you about those here towards the end. Now, let's take a quick look up at this phone and talk about the screen. Now, I believe it has an anti-reflective screen on it, coating, as well as those dimming lights. So that's going to make it not quite as bright as anything else out there. But I can tell you for one, this is a bright screen. So I'm not really worried about that brightness if I don't use the privacy screen. Now, there is one feature that we're missing this year that I really was hoping for, and that's that magnetic charging. You don't have it on the S series phones, the S26. You've got it on the Pixel phone right there. You got it on the iPhone right there. I love that. And if you want to get it on your Samsung, well, then our friends here at Banks have these Kevlar cases for your phone. So you put that on there and you can charge it with the magnetic. You can use it to put these magnetic accessories on it. Now, the reason why I'm talking about this today is because Banks not only made this one for S25 Ultra, but they came out with these here for the S26 Ultra. And we're going to try this on real quick because I want to show you something. They say that the phone is a little different build and softer to hold around the corners because the corners are more curved. But you know what? If you put a case on it, that's not an issue anyway. But this is the S26 Ultra case. Check this out. Pop this in here and look at that. Fits perfectly. Look at this, folks. Fits all the way around it. The cameras are all lined up. The only difference is it's a little deeper socket in here because the new one is actually gonna have that island popping it out. But other than that, it's the same look and feel. Those corners, you're not really gonna feel the difference, especially if they fit in this year's case. So if you wanted the magnetic charging on your S26 series, well, you can have it by getting the case from my friends at Banks. I'll give you a link in the description because this is actually a soft case. It feels really nice. It's very protective, made of Kevlar, and it doesn't have that slippery feel that you get with just the phone. I can feel the rubber edges here, and they're really grippy. Now, not only did they come out with cases, check this out. They have screen protectors, and the screen protector, I would never put a screen protector on an S25 Ultra simply because it has that anti-reflective screen. But check this out. Check what Banks did this year. This is an anti-reflective screen protector. So if you've got one of these or you've ever had one of these in the past with the coating on it, that coating actually wears off. You can Google it and check on the internet. You'll find that the coating does wear off on these phones, and you can still scratch it, you know? So having the screen protector on it is a great way to go. So let's take this out of here real quick and see what it looks like on the S25 Ultra. But it's, again, designed for the S26 Ultra, but as we saw there a moment ago, they're like exact same size. So here it is here. Basically, you set this on it and you pull this tab and it's installed. Isn't that awesome, folks? Well, let's see. I've got my 25 Ultra right here. Pop it in there and check that out. Fits in there perfectly. I'm not going to do it, but I would feel actually comfortable with putting on this phone. So that's really cool. You just pull the tab. Tempting. So I think that's great that you can have an anti-reflective screen placed on top of your anti-reflective screen to protect it from scratches. Again, links down in the description below. Now, because of the announcement today, we know exactly what these are going to cost you. You can get the S26 starting at $899. That's $100 more than last year. It was $799. But they did bump up the storage. Instead of starting at 126, they do have 256 gigabytes of storage. So you're getting something for your $100. And if I recall, last year, you could have bumped it up for that price last year. So basically, they're just forcing everybody up to the next tier. And then with the S26 Plus, it's starting out at $1,099. It was $999 last year. But again, what are you getting different? You're getting 256 gigabytes of storage. Now, the standard S26 is the one that's getting the biggest bump. It's going from a 6.2 to a 6.3 external screen, and also the battery's growing by 300 milliamp hours. It's going up to from 4,000 to 4,300. Now, the S26 Plus is staying the same at the 49 milliamp hour battery. And as far as charging goes on both of those, Samsung, 25 watts. 25 watts wired and 15 watts wireless. Again, Samsung is just not focusing on hardware. And same with the cameras, no change. So literally the only change with the Plus model is you're getting a larger storage, but you're paying the $100 for it. You are getting the faster chip and this AI for free for 2 years, which is a $200 value. So now it's time for the reality check-in to hear from you guys. Reality, should you upgrade? Now, you can't go off of me and what I say and what I do because I review these things, so I get them to review them. But unfortunately, there's sometimes I get them and I realize they're just so not worth it. And for me, because of my experience, I've been spoiled by Vivo and by Honor. It's just really difficult for me to want to go for a more expensive phone when the trade-in value is really not there. They are giving you $900 trade-in for this phone, but it's still $1,400 for the new one. So that's still $500 to upgrade. Oh, but it will have a slimmer S Pen, but they did not add Bluetooth back to it. So it's the same as what I have this year. So if I want to turn this into the new phone, I just put a privacy screen on it. Of course, that's not fair because their new software, well, you can turn it on and off. And as far as all that AI stuff, where it's coming from, it's really coming from Pixel. So all these new features that they're talking about, they've been around for a long time. Go ahead and research it on your own. Everything that they've talked about, the only thing that hasn't is the privacy screen. Everything else has been around and they've just are finally calling it their own. So all that to say, for me, it's a no-go for upgrading. Now, I'm struggling with it. I may upgrade one of my devices to try that new AI out, but I'm definitely not buying any of them for better photography or night videos, which is what they're really promoting with this phone. So I want to say I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm bashing Samsung. I'm just trying to be honest. I just tell you how I see it. You may see it differently, and you may be Samsung night and you may just get the phone just because it's Samsung and it's the new phone. And I say more power to you because they're not bad devices, not by a long shot. It's just, is it worth the upgrade? If you're coming from a 23 or a 24 model, yes, maybe. But if you have the 23 model, I think with the S Pen that has Bluetooth, you still may want to wait. Although waiting does reduce your trade-in value. So if you're coming from a 24 to the 26, it might be worth it. 25 to 26, I don't think so. Now it's time to hear from you. What do you think? Are you going to upgrade regardless? Am I just full of bunk? Do you totally disagree with me? Tell me about it in the chat. I don't mind. Let's hear from you. If you think I'm right on and you've tried any of that stuff or you got a hands-on view of that privacy screen, I want to hear what you think. If you want to see some performance tests on this S25 Ultra against some of these other phones, check out this video here. And if you want to see more battles between these devices, make sure you subscribe to the channel and don't miss out. And if you got something out of this video, do me a favor. Go ahead and hit that like button down below. Until next time, have a wonderful day and God bless.